10 years ago today, the Storm Prediction Center put up this forecast. And you don't see forecasts like this very often. To emphasize, this was 10 years ago. Uh, the what's described as a generational severe weather outbreak that occurred across the South, and we're going to talk about it today, along with a whole host of subject matters too long to even list at this early juncture. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Joe Rayo on my left, and I am Joe Chaffee. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show, as it is every night, brought to you by our friends at Omni True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest mulch provider. And they've got tons of mulch and just about everything you need to make your yard look terrific. And you can see it here. It comes in a whole host of colors. So you know what? Get your truck, get your front loader. Actually, they have a front loader there. But get it over there at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in Southwest Suffolk County. The best prices in town compared to everybody else. They do have the best prices in town. 631-756-1125. And the website is omnitruevalue.com. So indeed, Joe, that severe weather the outlook by the Storm Prediction Center on the actual day. And if you go to their archives, you can actually pull up their forecasts going back to the long range that they had when it was showing up on their day 6 and day 5. So they certainly were ahead of the curve 10 years ago when this was happening, and it was catastrophic in terms of the number of tornadoes and the huge death toll that took place out of this.
You take note of the fact that on that map, Joe, we were just to the east of the slight risk of severe weather on that particular day, but most of the activity was occurring down over the Southland, so to speak. And yeah, it's very, very unusual when you see on a convective outlook a region outlined in high probability for severe weather. That does not happen every day or every month or even every year. It indeed was a most unusual occurrence 10 years ago.
200. Now this was for the actual day. 292 tornado reports, and you can see them on the map here in the red dots. 438 wind reports of damaging winds. And I believe there were 2 reports that were considered on the high side. I'm guessing 65 knots or higher. Hail, 207 reports of hail, 24 reports of large hail, for a grand total just on this day of 937 reports. And if you scroll down, if you go in, again, you can go in the archives and pull this up. You can go state by state, county by county, as to what was observed and what the storms are. Low end, for example, here on one instance here at New Carlisle in Clark, Ohio, NWS Storm Survey confirms low end EF0 tornado. Go further down, Mississippi. Number of homes, mobile homes damaged along the path. EF3 tornado, 140 mile an hour winds, path length 13.6 miles, maximum width 1/4 of a mile. I mean, just incredible. What this setup produced. And again, just to give you another view of what they had. So they had a high risk in the northern half of Alabama, southern Tennessee, south central Tennessee, northeastern Mississippi, and northwestern Georgia. Moderate risk going all the way up into Kentucky, and the slight risk carries all the way up into upstate New York, where there were, by the way, reports of tornadoes and severe thunderstorms in Pennsylvania, 2 reports in western New Jersey, a number of reports in upstate New York, mainly, say, north of I-90 and along and west of I-81. And of course, you see the huge concentration. Again, this is just for the one day. And I pulled up some of the upper air maps here, which I thought were really interesting here. This is that you know how I like to look at that 700 millibar map, and I mean that is one wrapped up upper low, deep upper low sitting over northern Wisconsin. And then there's another upper low on the bottom of this trough. So you had a strong shortwave swinging around with a cutoff low there in northern Oklahoma. And you're seeing all these 50, 60, 70 knot winds at the 700 millibar level across Mississippi, Alabama, into Tennessee, and then pushing northward even into Kentucky and in parts of Ohio. This was in the morning of April 27th, 2011. And when we move over to the evening hours, that upper low is still pretty much the one in Minnesota sitting in the same spot. I mean, look at these, strong, this huge jet that came around the base of that trough that runs from Louisiana all the way up the west side of the Appalachians on up into western New York. I mean, we have 870, 85 knot winds at the 700 millibar level. Obviously, a lot of that mixed down to the surface, and obviously there was enough here to create a lot of rotation in a whole host of places. I mean, this is really a very impressive upper air. This is the kind of thing you really don't see very often. This is sort of a 1 in 20 year, 30-year type event.
Absolutely agree. Craig Carlberg is on the chat board, and he says, I noticed on the map of severity that there were no marginal areas in 2011. Well, Craig, the what we're using now has only been around for the last 3 or 4 years. Back in 2011, there were only three basic classifications. There was slight, moderate, and high. And I guess, yeah, they probably would have broken it down into a greater. I mean, we have so many new categories now, Joe. I wouldn't even know what they would have categorized this setup as if they were using today's setup in 2011. But no question about it, this was an amazing super outbreak. Probably the one outbreak prior to 2011. The only other thing that stands out in my mind that could have been comparable was the super outbreak way back in April of 1974. Xenia, Ohio, for example, completely destroyed by one potent tornado that came on through that town. And they had dozens of reports of tornadoes back then. By the way, very funny that where you have the red and the different dots indicating tornadic activity.
Right.
I chuckled a little bit. Indiana, right smack in the middle of the state, one tornado.
Yes.
Report.
Also, notice, by the way, I mean, it's right there. There's that one little dot there in the great state of Indiana, right? And the dot looks like it's almost exactly in the center part of the state. There's also one dot on the Florida Panhandle where it meets the Georgia-Alabama border. You can see that there too.
Just a stone's throw from Tallahassee, I guess.
The other thing is, if you look on the risk zones. Oddly enough, since they didn't have a marginal risk, but they did have on both the easternmost side and the westernmost side a narrow band of a 2% probability of tornado, which usually you would see that with a marginal risk or maybe even a slight risk nowadays. But they did actually have severe tornado risk in the area that was not in the slight risk. And the same also goes for the chance for the strong winds, and not so much the hail, but the tornado and the strong winds is certainly on that fringe area without the marginal risk. And this is what it looked like, by the way. I pulled up the surface maps from that day, and I'm going to go back to first thing in the morning at 8 a.m. And the table was already set at 8 a.m. When you look at some of these obs across Texas and Louisiana, you already have dew points in most of Texas, in the eastern part of the state. Even in the western part of the state, the dew points were pretty high. The dry line, you had to go back at this early stage, was back in New Mexico and northwest Texas, where dew points were down in the low 20s. but you've got dew points in the low 70s at 7 a.m. Meanwhile, just for contrast, you look through Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia at that time, and especially in the areas where the severe weather hit the hardest. The dew points started out the day in the 50s, and if we move the map along, those dew points came up in a big hurry by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Those dew points were running up close to 60. Now, for some reason, it's not letting me load the next map after 18Z. I wonder why that is. That's odd. Let me see. Let me see if I go back one.
Would that be 21Z?
Yeah, it just stopped at 18Z, but there should be. It was there before. I'm not sure why it's not there now. Let me see if I can reset this. Either that or everybody's in here doing the same thing. No, it was here before because I pulled it up with the low moving across this low center that you see in southern Colorado, moving across and then heading up toward Illinois and Indiana with a really, really strong cold front. This is really bizarre. Just, well, I'll go to 0Z. Please select, oh, I see why. Oh, never mind. Hold on a second. My mistake. Hang on a second. This is my error. Okay, my error. I had this preset, Joe, for the 2011. I must have hit the wrong button here. All right, it went to 2021. No wonder that it's like, why is there no next map? Okay, so today, so it's April the 27th, 2011. Now let's go back. I apologize for that. Trust me, I had this preset, okay? So here we go. Now let's go back to 12Z. And there's your frontal boundary in East Texas. What we actually saw, by the way, it reset back to what's going on today. So we'll get to that in a moment. I'm red with embarrassment. Okay, so dew points at 8 a.m. in East Texas, all in the low, and even some dew points at 73. That's you can cut that with you can cut that with your hand in terms of how humid it was. You still had dew points. They were just setting the table here, upper 50s and low 60s, mostly low 60s through Alabama and into northern Georgia. And then we'll go to the next map. You can see the low there in central Arkansas. And suddenly those 70 dew points start pouring in to Alabama and points north and east. And of course, this low winds up going up. There it is, the actual surface low, a 993 low, which at the end of April is not too shabby a low in terms of depth in southern Indiana. I mean, you just had tremendous inflow here from the Gulf of Mexico, just solid inflow here coming right out of the Gulf with that very, very moist tropical air. And of course, behind it, you see the dew points after the front passed down in the low 40s through Texas and 30s and 20s as you head back up further west into West Texas. So that was quite the dry, cool push, temperatures in the 60s and 50s. And then, of course, ahead of it, you had temperatures in the 80s. And the upper air was just so dynamic. And it led to I guess we can call it an atmospheric kaboom. And even in the Northeast, Joe, you had dew points running up into the 60s and temperatures in the mid and upper 70s throughout much of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. So the atmosphere was pretty ripe up and down the eastern seaboard, but west of the coastal plain.
Yes, very much. Just shy of equatorial with those high dew points. And that is a very juicy air mass, so to speak. And no wonder that we saw such a tremendous outbreak of not just tornadic activity, but also, I'm sure, microbursts, some large hail. It really, you're probably right, Joe. This was kind of like a generational. If you assume that a generation is 25 years, this certainly was a generational event, because it'll be a long time before I think we see that happen. And now, of course, I say that. Wait until later this spring or summer when we see the next round of high potential. But it doesn't happen, folks. It doesn't happen very often. And as Joe pointed out, grand total, over 900 different reports of different variations of severe weather. Just an unbelievable day.
And looking at today, the Storm Prediction Center has a slight risk throughout much of central Texas through Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, western Missouri, another area of slight in eastern Colorado. For a change, it's not the snow's not the issue, although it is in the mountains. Northeastern Kansas, the mountains west of Denver, I should say. Also was southwest Nebraska, small area of slight risk also in south central Wisconsin. The day 2 outlook, which is for uh, tomorrow into Thursday, we've got slight risk again in Oklahoma and in central Texas. The marginal risk runs northeast through the middle Mississippi and in a narrow band through the Ohio Valley into northwestern Pennsylvania, actually even into north central Pennsylvania, and western and central New York. And on the day 3 outlook, which is for Thursday into Friday. Now, a few things have changed on the models today as far as the end of the week is concerned. So we're going to get to that as well. But there's a marginal risk in northern Kentucky, southern Ohio, much of West Virginia, and southern Indiana. The general thunderstorms are actually south of New York City down into southern Virginia. Much of the nation, the southeast is quiet and dry. The northeast, north and east of New York City, quiet, and at least from the standpoint of thunderstorms, no thunderstorms to worry about. And the western and central part of the U.S. also very, very quiet indeed on the SPC forecast. So that takes us through Friday. And let's go. I'm going at it a little backwards today. So let's look at the satellite, which, I mean, it wasn't too bad a day, Joe. There were some patchy clouds around, especially early on, streaming from the northwest. You see those high clouds just sort of coming over the top. The old storm is still just kind of rotating there over Nova Scotia. And now, of course, you have this warm tropical air surging into Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. And that's where our severe weather issues are going to be taking place.
And did anybody see a sprinkle this morning? I don't think anybody saw any sprinkles or spritzes. We mentioned that with the warm front, but I woke up and actually when I woke up this morning, Joe, just a lot of thin, high clouds, a fair amount of blue sky, and also some bright sunshine. So it turned out to be, at least up here, a pretty nice day overall.
I didn't get a chance to look. What were the highs today?
Generally speaking, they were in the upper 60s to around 70. I think up here we were at 67, 68 degrees. And of course, tomorrow, the push of warmer and probably more humid air. And the question is, just how high are we going to get? I think the question for tomorrow is going to be dealing with how much cloud cover we're going to have. I think we're going to see more clouds than sun. And then with the chance later in the day of shower and even by tomorrow evening thunderstorm activity, one has to wonder just how high up are the temperatures going to go. Certainly, it looks like, in my opinion, 70s to around 80 for most inland areas, 60s to near 70 right along the south-facing shorelines. And again, I think what's going to prevent it from going out of control, what it's going to prevent it, and I remember a couple of forecasters alluding several days ago, is saying, well, Wednesday, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw temperatures in the mid to upper 80s or maybe even approach 90 degrees. Well, unless we have a clear or very few clouds out there tomorrow, I think what's going to hold the temperatures down will be the cloud cover. High temperature, according to my lovely wife looking at the weather station output, 67, currently right now, 61.
In beautiful downtown Putnam Valley, which should not be confused with beautiful uptown Putnam Valley.
Well, actually, we're more uptown than downtown. Downtown is where the post office is, and also the bank. Uptown, there ain't much to say about uptown except that we live here, and right down the road is the filling station. Ike Nazi and Sam Drucker take care of that.
I was just going to say that, and of course, whenever you need something that you can't find in town, you just take a ride over to Pixley and pick it up over there.
That's right. And I want to thank Mr. Reuben Fairchild. Thank you so much for pointing out that Lee Goldberg has 85 degrees for tomorrow. Just to negate what I just said of saying around 80, and anything higher than that, you have to deal with the cloud cover. But I'm sure we're all happy that Lee Goldberg is going for 85 tomorrow. Incidentally, if in case Mr. Fairchild, in case you want to know, Lonnie Quinn is going for 84. So there you go.
Oh, and they won't come on this show.
and you want to, if you want to report back to me and tell me what Janice Hoff is saying, I'd be most appreciative. So.
Oh, sarcasm is just such a wonderful thing. I just want to see just what the digital forecasts for the Weather Service are doing tomorrow, because and I was having trouble loading this earlier today. So on the digital forecast, they've got 83 at Capixi, 84 at LaGuardia, 75 at Islip. So, northern Nassau, northwestern Suffolk County will probably get close to 80, I would think, even if the sea breeze decides to come in. Trenton, 85. Philadelphia, 87. 85 for Reading. Harrisburg, 85. 88 for Baltimore. 88 for Washington. There's an 89. I don't know what that dot is midway between Richmond and Staunton, Virginia. I don't see any 90s here. It's mostly middle and upper 80s up and down the eastern seaboard. But you're right, Joe. You got to be a little careful, because sometimes even when you have those westerly isobars, this time of year with the ocean water temperature still sitting in the upper 40s, that sea breeze can be a little sneaky. And suddenly at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you see Newark's wind go from 270 to 160, and the temperature drops off. I'm not saying it's going to happen like that tomorrow, but certainly if you look at some of the temperatures, for example, over eastern Long Island and into southeastern New England, they're in the upper 50s. And by the way, this is a setup where the further north you go, the lower your temperatures are going to be. So, we've had a number of these upside down instances where you wind up seeing temperatures well up into the 80s in upstate New York and in New England, and we're cooler than the South. But in this particular instance, because of the orientation of the ridge, the upper ridge, the warmer temperatures are going to be more as you go south and west and also inland. The one thing I did notice, Joe, just going to pop off to Thursday, and again, this is because of that frontal boundary being so close. Now, it still has upper 60s and low 70s in southern New England and the lower and middle Hudson Valley, Long Island, except for, again, the East End and southeastern New England. But that's definitely because of the wind off the water. But, you start to go down, particularly you go across 195 in New Jersey and point south, it's in the low and mid 80s again. So that's where your boundary is. It's literally going to be lying probably across Long Island, New York City, or just south of Long Island, New York City, to about Allentown or just north of Harrisburg. Somewhere in there is where this frontal boundary is going to wind up. It actually makes Thursday a real challenge as far as forecasting temperatures. How much cloud cover are you going to have? Are there going to be scattered showers around? That's another question, and that's going to also impact temperatures. It's a very, very tough call for Thursday.
Actually, I think, depending upon where that front is going to be on Thursday and the wind direction, if we get easterly or east-southeasterly winds, I could see Thursday turning out to be cloudy straight on through the day. I could even see, Joe, with the frontal boundary so close, that there'll be areas of patchy fog, and there might be some, spotty or intermittent shower activity. It may be actually, I think the best chance of our seeing convective type precipitation, thunderstorms, for example, will come at the end of tomorrow and into the first part of tomorrow night. And thereafter, I think whatever precip we see here will be more of a showery or spotty intermittent rain type lingering on into Thursday. And of the 2 days, tomorrow and Thursday, I definitely think the cloudier of the two is going to be Thursday. Maybe even, as I said, a bit of fog out there too. Again, all depending upon where that frontal line eventually ends up.
And of course, the whole profile for Friday has changed, because now it looks like instead of another low pulling that front back up north as a warm front and then sweeping a cold front through Friday, it looks like the models want to kind of put their energy on that low to the north on the frontal boundary on Thursday, bringing a front through, bringing that front south and east Thursday night into Friday morning. Because I mean, you're looking at highs in the 60s, all the way down into Maryland on Friday, and only upper 60s and low 70s just about everywhere else. So a bit of a change here certainly takes my idea of maybe a risk for severe weather on Friday completely off the table. If that if the Thursday night front is the front and you wind up with just waiting for the upper trough, which won't have much to work on, to come through later Friday or Friday night.
I think Friday. By the way, uh, on the European, I noticed that they were actually pushing 540 thicknesses into our area during the day on Friday, Joe. And with
Naturally,
that upper system, if that turns out, we're going to have an incredibly unstable air mass on Friday. It kind of crossed my mind. Now you said you wanted to take severe weather off the table, but yet it
I
crossed
know,
my
but with the
mind that we
deep
might
upper
get one of
trough,
those
you
low.
wonder.
Yeah, with the deep upper I'm saying to myself, could it possibly be that we could end up with, in the afternoon hours, some low top convection, or maybe as we were talking about yesterday, some of those hailers, those pea-sized hail makers, or it's that kind of a thing. It looks so incredibly unstable, especially upstairs with that pool of cool air moving in, that you have to wonder what exactly is nature going to try to cook up for us on Friday. And then behind all of that, on Saturday, I wish, the one thing I would emphasize about Saturday is the wind. I'm not sure if we're going to approach or reach wind advisory criteria, but I'm getting the feeling more and more that we're going to be seeing wind gusts on Saturday, 35, maybe 40 miles an hour or more. It'll turn out to be a fairly sunny day, but it is going to be a blustery day, maybe kind of like what we had here yesterday when we were seeing lots of strong gusty winds as well, all out of the northwesterly direction. That would be for the start of your weekend on Saturday.
Yeah, and low to mid 60s for highs on Saturday from uh, Pennsylvania to southern New England, and then you get upper 60s to around 70 as you get down into Maryland and Virginia, and the cool 70s down into the southeastern part of the U.S. 71 for me for a high on Saturday. I was looking at the fork. I actually have the air conditioning on. It got to 80 today, and I was cooking something in the oven, so the inside temperature got to 75. So I just threw the AC on just to cool it off ever so slightly. Tornado HQ, Joe. Guess where all the action is tonight? At least so far, there have been a number of tornado warnings in Colorado, in Kit Carson and Yuma County. Two tornado warnings there. Lincoln County, Cheyenne, a couple of tornado warnings in Cheyenne. All of them have expired in the last hour or so. Kiowa County, I don't know if I said that right. Ruthless Goat, if I'm making a mistake, let me know. Kiowa, Iowa. Kiowa? Kiowa? Um,
Don't ask me.
yeah. Also, a couple in Texas, in Wichita and Wilbarger, Texas, expired there. Baylor, Ford, Knox, Wilbarger, another one earlier 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, in King, Texas. And that's it. So at least so far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 tornado warnings, the vast majority of them in northeastern Colorado. And that was an area of risk that was not indicated in the long range, and SPC wound up going back and adding it in. If we look at the radar as of 8 o'clock Eastern time, I'm just giving it a quick refresh. You can see those big thunderstorms in northeastern Colorado. A pretty impressive development there going on. Nice little line that's approaching northwest Kansas and southwestern Nebraska. Also, some showers and storms now moving out of north central Texas. There's a line that's forming there, well to the west of Dallas, by the way. But you can see there's a strong line that probably runs south of Lubbock down to about Midland, and then runs northeast through the state of Colorado. So we'll probably see some additional severe thunderstorm warnings in the next several hours. If you're watching this on a replay, by the way, remember, go to weather.gov, to your local National Weather Service office, to check out their forecast and what is going on with respect to severe weather. Because obviously, if you're watching this on a replay tonight or tomorrow, it's clearly what you're seeing is dated. WPC on their 7-day rainfall still not showing a whole lot from southern New England down into North Carolina, basically a quarter of an inch or less, and in some cases a tenth of an inch or less. However, they are showing rather robust precip in where it's needed in upstate New York and in central New England, where we showed the drought maps yesterday. They're in a drought situation there. Also in the middle Mississippi, lower Ohio Valley, down into excuse me, into Arkansas and Oklahoma and through central Texas, anywhere from 1.5 inches to 3 inches plus. The west is dry except for the northwestern corner of Washington. And of course, you see a lot of the precip that's covering Colorado, Nebraska, and now, for the first time, we've been saying almost reflexively that this was all in the form of snow. Well, obviously now where we're seeing thunderstorms, that isn't the case. But in the some of the mountains west of Denver, west and north of Denver, there are a few winter storm warnings that are still up for 1 foot plus of snow tonight into Wednesday. So it ain't done yet out in the western in the west. Doesn't want to go away.
As
Joe.
Yogi said, it ain't over till it's over, and it looks like it's not going to be over, at least through the end of the month.
Well, as I like to say, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, and she's clearing her throat. Obviously for us, the fat lady has sang her aria. She's taken off her makeup, and she's gone out drinking. So it's all done. Running through the upper air, kind of interesting from what it was showing yesterday, and now in the GFS kind of shifted around a little bit. Looks more like the European does. This thing over Nova Scotia finally lifts out. And of course, you see the ridge position that we're here in the eastern part of the United States for tomorrow and into the first part of Thursday. And then you got this trough that's swinging down out of Canada. Big blocking high in southern Greenland is forcing, displacing the jet stream further south. Yeah, I mean, Joe, you look at this upper trough coming through Friday night. It's fairly strong, but again, I'm going to be curious to see how this all works out, because I was looking at the dew points for Friday. Now, all of a sudden, they went from showing dew points in the 60s to dew points in the 40s. So that's kind of the reason why I sort of took away the idea of any sort of severe weather. But the upper trough is there, so I think we have to pay a little attention to it. And then that swings out over the weekend. And instead of a ridge building now in the east, there's more troughing coming down because the block over Greenland and in northeastern Canada just kind of sits there into next week. And that just keeps the jet further south and fairly active through the middle and latter part of next week. In fact, look at this at the end of next week, Joe. Look at this deep trough that the GFS makes at the end of next week. I don't know how real this is, but my God, if that's a really for early May. That is and going into Mother's Day weekend, no less. Mother's Day weekends the last few years have not been good, as I recall. There's been a problem with almost every one of them.
I don't have a memory about that, but I can remember some Mother's Days. I remember one Mother's Day that I think, no, it couldn't have been wet snow. It was just like a miserable, dank, dreary, chilly day for Mother's Day.
Yeah, I don't remember
the moms
how it
don't
was
often.
last year. I don't remember what
The moms don't get any good luck, I think, on their day. Usually, more often than not. So
yeah, it runs in streaks like everything else. Then that trough pulls out, and then back into maybe a ridge position in the long term, but who knows how right that is. So let's run through the surface map really quick and see what the world has to offer here. And All right.
And by the
So
way, with that upper trough coming through on Friday night, I'm envisioning, Joe, the winds freshening up in the afternoon on Friday out of the northwest, and then once the axis of that upper trough moves past us, sometime, let's say late night on Friday night, say 1, 2 in the morning, all of a sudden the winds just start roaring. Well, maybe not roaring, but the winds really start picking up quite a bit as we get into the back end of that upper trough, leading us into a very windy or blustery day on Saturday.
the uh, the GFS has a warm front to our north with some showers tonight in upstate New York and even down into Massachusetts and Connecticut around 2 a.m. And then of course they're long gone. And again, I kind of think the gradient is tight enough to keep winds mostly west tomorrow, but you know what? You got to be careful. It's not super tight, and you've got this low and cold front that's approaching for Wednesday night into Thursday, and the model does try to bring in some showers during Wednesday night that move more in New England than anything else. We're kind of on the edge of that. And then, of course, you could see the weather that breaks out across Texas on Wednesday and on up through Oklahoma, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. That is, of course, where SPC is focusing their risk. And then here's Thursday. Thursday evening, Joe, the front is literally sitting. I mean, if you draw a line, I mean, it's got showers. That could even be rain, actually. If you look at the radar, I mean, for southern New England, over Long Island, New York City, eastern PA, there's a low in northwest Jersey, and the front is just kind of sitting right on top of this zone. And now the GFS is doing what the other model's doing. That is, Friday morning, the front is right on the coast, and then of course you do have the gradient tightening up a bit Friday afternoon into Friday night, and through at least the first part of Saturday. It starts to relax a little later in the day, but it might be close to it. Listen, if it was blowing away the other day where it didn't look like we were at advisory criteria, and we almost were, I suppose we could wind up in the same place. And then going forward, the weekend looks okay. Um, it's not going to be perfect. There's another front comes through on Sunday that dies out before it gets here. And then you've got this stuff that forms in the Gulf of Mexico and runs up the East Coast with some rain off the Delaware coast Monday night into Tuesday. We'll see if it makes it this far north. But also, Joe, you can see the action of the block because the low, the system comes up the coast and then gets shoved out to the east off the Jersey coast. And then you get another one right behind that one. So suddenly that what looked like was going to be a warm first week of May, or at least the first part of the first week of May, doesn't look quite as attractive on today's runs that it did yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as I've been saying all along, Joe, once you get past 3 or 4 days, if you're going to try to make an extended forecast of any kind, and this again leads up to those TV stations, and there are a couple of them giving you 10-day outlooks. I mean, once you get past 4 or 5 days, forget it. I mean, I wouldn't trust a forecast much beyond 5 days for as far as I can throw it. So, if you're hoping, as you just said, for balmy days as we move into May, that's beginning to look less and less probable.
Yes. Now I'm going to play. I'm going to play the vacationing tourist who has come home and wants to show everybody his pictures or her pictures. And I just want to show you my little Robin here that I have been taking care of. We picked him up on Saturday, and I have to tell you, he has grown so much in the last 3 days, shockingly. And I, that's
I'm impressed that he's standing, that he's on top of the. I'm impressed that he's like on the box and he's not trying to fly around the house.
well, no,
That's great.
I have him out on the porch, and today he's been flapping his wings, getting his strength, and he was able to fly from his actual nest, which fell off the tree. I found it in my walk the next day. I brought the nest home, and he was spending his time in there, and then today yesterday he kind of just sat on the edge of the nest all day, kind of flapping his wings, and today he's parked himself pretty much on the box, although he did actually jump off there and fly off to the rail. I have a screened-in porch, so he's protected from getting out for now. I want to wait till he's strong enough to fly on his own. But you know what? He's grown so much, and that's, by the way, I'm feeding him because it's amazing, Joe. I put this up on Facebook. Nobody reads or there's audio to this, but I'm not playing the audio. Um, the little Boydie, the little bird. So I didn't want to. I could have gone to the bait and tackle shop, but it's for me, everything is a 10-mile trip. So I did what I did the last time that I had this situation, and that was I took dog food and soaked it in warm water until it got really soft. It's mostly protein because robins, when they're raising young, are what they're doing is they go off their seed diet and they go to insects and they feed their babies insects. So I just substituted a different protein. So I know what I'm doing because I've done this before. Anyway, that's my robin. Now,
Who would have thought? Who would have thought this back in January, when you made your trek down into Georgia, and you got yourself all set up down there? That now here you are. It's just you and JJ and the Boyd.
yes, exactly. Now, I did go, this is Bell Mountain, which is about 20 minutes from my house. It's 3,300 feet above sea level. I'm 2,200 feet. But let me tell you, that extra
Wow.
1,000 feet is almost straight up. When you're on this road to get up there, Joe, think of a one-lane road that acts as a two-way, a one-lane road that acts as a two-way. And I mean, literally, if you have a car coming in the other direction, you have to pull off the side of the road, and you're sort of inches from the edge. And then we're doing this going up the mountain. Somehow we managed to make it. But the views here were just absolutely stunning. And in fact, it was a beautiful, clear, sunny day. In the background, those mountains in the background, that's the state of Tennessee. So that's about 50 or so, 50, 60 miles of visibility. And this is on the other side, which is not developed. Okay, so I just wanted to give you perspective here. This is on the other side of the viewpoint, and these are some other shots here. Brasstown Bull is the other mountain that is very close to me, and that's the next trip up. That is actually the highest peak in the state of Georgia. It's I believe it's 6,300 feet above sea level. So I'm in these.
Now, what I would.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say
I would love to know.
Go ahead.
I would love to know what it's like to be up there at night. I would love to see what the sky looks like, because obviously I don't see any street lights.
There's no light pollution. So, there's no light pollution at all.
God.
I mean, it's just, these shots were just amazing. And it doesn't do it justice when you can't, when you're actually there. I don't care how, I just did these pictures obviously off my phone, but to see it was truly stunning, breathtaking. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that. We still have an audience.
But I love it. I love what you got up there. That's fabulous. That's fantastic.
This is beautiful. Beautiful country here.
And I see that a few people have complimented you on your looking after the bird. The bird. One of them said the bird is very lucky to have you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Johnny Quest wants to know, why do tornadoes tend to develop in the right rear quadrant of a storm? Well, that's where the warm sector is.
Correct. If you're going to have a hurricane coming your way, the last place you want to be is in the right rear quadrant, because that's where all the warm, juicy air happens to be. Which is unfortunate that's where New York and Long Island was with Hurricane Sandy. Everybody calls Sandy Superstorm Sandy, Joe, but really, compared to some of the storms like Donna, for example, some of the other hurricanes we had in years prior to Sandy. Sandy was just, really like right on teetering on the edge between tropical storm and hurricane. But the thing that made Sandy so, quote, super was the track that it took. It went into central New Jersey and put the entire New York City metropolitan area in the right rear quadrant of the storm, and that's why we ended up seeing what we got, as opposed to other even more potent, even more powerful storms that passed over 20, 30, 40 years prior.
Brasstown Ball, Johnny Quest has just corrected me. Somebody told me it was 6,300 feet. I didn't look it up. 4,784 is the height on Brasstown Bald. I said Brasstown Bald. I haven't been here that long, so that's Brasstown Bald. So let's move on to a Briller Jeopardy for Mr. Rayo tonight. It's astronomy is the subject matter, to infinity and beyond. So we've got 7 questions for you. Are you ready?
Yes.
What planet's moons are named after characters created by William Shakespeare and Alexander Pope?
Well, William Shakespeare and Alexander, these have to be relatively new names or relatively new satellites. Could it be Uranus or
Uranus?
Neptune?
That is Uranus. That is correct. What is a Martian day called? What is a Martian day called?
That I have I know that the day is equivalent to like 24 hours and 37 minutes, but there's a name for it. I guess that came out of the recent, Martian or the recent Mars probes that have visited there, and they said, well, we have to have a name for a Martian day. I don't know. I'm about to learn something here, I
Sol.
guess.
S-O-L.
S-O-L?
S-O-L. Sol.
Sol?
Sol.
Sol?
Well, Sol. Sol. Which is,
we worked with at FiOS, we worked with a guy named Saul.
Yes. But that was S-A-U-L. This is S-O-L.
S-A-U-L, okay.
Right. Which means sun. What is the largest moon in the solar system?
Would that be well, I don't think it's Titan. Is it Titan or Triton? Or maybe Ganymede?
It's Ganymede. That is correct. Yes, it's 41% the size of Earth. Our current North Star is Polaris, and it will be replaced by what star in 13,000 years?
Vega.
That is correct. What is the fastest spinning planet in our solar system?
That would be Jupiter.
That is correct.
9 hours and 55 minutes.
Name the two planets that have no moons.
It would be Mercury and Venus.
That is correct. And finally, on the last question, if you get this correct, you're going to win the fur coat from Dicker and Dicker of Beverly Hills. What element is named after the 7th planet from the sun?
What element is named after the 7th planet from the sun?
Right. This should be easy.
Well, let's see. Well, the 7th planet: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, uranium.
Uranium, that is correct. So you win the beautiful fur coat from Dicker and Dicker of Beverly Hills.
I'd rather have the silverware set, the silverware tea set from the Michael C. Fina
company. And there's always the $50 gift certificate from the famous Spiegel Catalog Company, Chicago, Illinois, 60609.
60609.
We got to save those because Joe Moskowitz, who Joe and I both worked with in our News 12 days. You older News 12 fans will remember him. But he's starting his own podcast next week. So once he gets that underway, I asked him to come on the show and promote it and talk about it. And we'll have some fun reminiscing about the old days. Since
yeah.
none of us can get into any sort of trouble by anything that we say at this stage of our lives.
Yeah, we ought to bring on Norm Dvoskin. That would be
Yeah,
that would really be going down memory lane.
yes, that certainly would be.
I'm not sure though. I think Norm is still using a rotary phone though.
Yeah. You're just beyond the rotary phone. You got rid of your flip phone, so that was a big step forward for you.
Yes, screaming and kicking, I might add.
Yes. All right, let's wrap it up here tonight, folks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining
Oh,
us. Yeah.
one thing I need to mention is that we had one of our local weathercasters in the New York market reached a milestone today, an amazing milestone, and I'm sure many on the chat board know who I'm talking about. It was Craig Allen, who on this day, Joe, 40 years ago,
Wow.
did his first weather forecast on WCBS News Red. Back then it was News Radio 88. It's now
Right.
News Radio 880. But for someone to, first of all, continuously work in the same field, you and I did that for 40 years. That's one thing. But to work for the same company 40 consecutive years, that is unbelievable. And he is still on News Radio 880 today as he was 40 years ago. Another colleague of his estimated that Craig has done on CBS 350,000 weathercasts.
Wow.
I I posted on my Facebook page, Craig unequivocally is the Cal Ripken of local broadcasters, broadcast meteorologists, and he has recorded so many weathers on CBS, so many weathercasts. He's been doing it for 350,000 degree days.
Yeah. That's insane. That's terrific. Congratulations to Craig. Hope all is well. Okay, that's it. Now we can say goodbye.
Now we could say goodbye.
All right. So
goodbye.
Again, thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.